Hello, everyone, and thank you for watching this information session on the Cultural Funding Program's 2025 operational grants. My name is Jesse Koza. I am the Cultural Arts Administrator. I'm with the Division of Arts and Cultural Services of the City of Wichita. Very briefly, the Division of Arts and Cultural Services is a local arts agency. Those exist to promote, support, and develop the arts at the local level, ensuring a vital presence for the arts throughout America's communities. We're very proud to be a local arts agency for the City of Wichita. You can see some of our partners throughout the state and the nation listed below. The mission of the Division of Arts and Cultural Services is to ensure everyone has equitable access to cultural arts opportunities by activating and strengthening the creative potential of our community. That's a new mission. It was adopted as part of our 2024-2028 Cultural Arts Strategic Plan. And the objective of the operating grants portion of the Cultural Funding Program is to provide fiduciary support to exemplary organizations that contribute to the quality of life and add to the economic growth and vitality of our community. The adoption of the 2024-2028 Cultural Arts Strategic Plan provides the Division of Arts and Cultural Services and the Cultural Funding Committee the opportunity to revamp the structure of the Cultural Funding Program, which includes the operational grants, to support growth, creativity, and accountability. So what that means is that as we have gone through this program over the past several years, we've made adjustments to it. This new strategic plan allows us to make even more adjustments to the operational grant program in order to increase accessibility, to help make things easier for the applicant. And we're very excited about some of the small changes we made this year, and we look forward to making it even better for our residents as we move forward. The Cultural Funding Committee reviews applications for the Cultural Funding Program. It recommends to the City Council which individuals and organizations should receive grant funding and how much should be allocated to each. The Arts Council provides oversight support for the CFC. The committee has 11 members. 7 are appointed by the City Council, that's 1 for each district plus the mayor, and 4 are appointed by the Arts Council. Across all the appointments, the Cultural Funding Committee must contain at least 3 members who are artists or have art-related or arts organization experience, at least 1 member with grant writing or previous grant reviewing experience, at least 2 members with financial experience, and at least 3 members considered at large. The Cultural Funding Committee does have public meetings. They meet on the first Thursday of every month at noon here at City Arts in our second floor boardroom. We record all of the Cultural Funding Committee meetings, and the uploads to those recordings are a little behind, but can eventually be found at the city's YouTube page. And there's actually an entire playlist just of Cultural Funding Committee meetings. So we encourage you to watch those after they've been done, especially the Q&A sessions, which I'll get to a little later. But they're there to make sure that you know that they are public meetings and that decisions are not necessarily being made behind closed doors. So operational funding. Last year's operational funding came in at $452,000. We had 24 partners that received operational funding. You can see them all listed here. Some are first-time recipients. Some have been with the program since its inception. Every year, it is a zero-based budget system, so everything is wiped clean after a year, and everything is reconsidered anew. So just because an organization got a certain amount one year does not mean that they'll get the same amount the following year. That means that every year we are considering applicants based on the application they submit, not based on anything that has happened before. This year's current grant cycle opened on June 7th. And I'm going to say it a couple times, but you can find applications at wichita.submittable.com. That link is also available at wichita.gov/arts. Cultural institutions. Now, this information is here just to sort of let you know that these organizations do not compete as part of this program. So Wichita Art Museum, Cowtown, Botanica, these groups all receive direct funding from the city of Wichita. They do not compete in the operational grant program. You can learn more about that, actually, if you'd like, in the Cultural Arts Strategic Plan that you can find at wichita.gov/arts, where we discuss at length this institution program and how it affects things like the operational grant program. But just know that if your organization is applying in here, these organizations are not eligible for this program. So if you forget everything, if you lose my email, where can you go to find this information? Wichita.gov/arts. You may need to scroll down a little bit. There's a lovely banner image, but there on the left, you'll see cultural arts funding. That should have hopefully most of the information that you need to get you back to submittable, get you the timeline information. If you have questions about that, we'll go over that in a moment, or just get our contact information so you can reach out directly to us with any questions you might have. Again, that's wichita.gov/arts. So the process and timeline. Like I mentioned earlier, June 7th, 2024, applications are open and available at wichita.submittable.com. You can also find that link at wichita.gov/arts, but the direct address, wichita.submittable.com. From June 7th all the way to August 2nd, that's a Friday, staff are available for questions and assistance. This means we can answer questions you may have about what the grant is looking for. What does a statement of activity? What is your fiscal year if you're not certain? Should you be a medium or a small organization? And do you have everything uploaded that you need to have uploaded? Those are the sort of questions that staff can answer. We can't answer whether or not you have answered a narrative question well enough. That's not up to us. But we can tell you if your application is complete and whether it will be moving on to the Cultural Funding Committee for review. If you have questions about that before you fill out the application, absolutely reach out and ask. August 5th, that's a Monday, at 11:59 p.m., that's the submission deadline for the fiscal year 2025 application. So you get that weekend, you get the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th to finish up your application if you need to get it done. And then we will go through all of them to make sure that they are complete. We'll reach out if something's missing, but we would really love it if everything was there ahead of time. About 6 weeks later, September 19th, that's our operational funding Q&A sessions. So that's not necessarily, hopefully, as scary as it sounds. You will schedule a 15-minute time, that's a Thursday, September 19th, to come in and answer any questions that the Cultural Funding Committee may have about your organization, about your application. Sometimes, our answers are limited by the number of characters allowed, and you might not be able to be as clear or as thorough as you'd like to be. And so the committee may seek more information just to make sure that they understand what you're trying to say. We're not there to trick you. We're not there to make you feel bad about yourselves. We're just there to check in and make sure that they have the best idea about your organization that they could have. A week later, the Cultural Funding Committee will get together to deliberate the applications to make the first draft of their recommendations to City Council. Who should get what funding and how much should it be? A week later, they finalize those recommendations for City Council. And then during that month, during October, City staff will take those recommendations to City Council to seek approval. Later in 2024, November, maybe into December, we will create and issue the contracts with the grant recipients. And then January 1st, 2025, if you're a new applicant, you've never had cultural funding grants before, you will be able to invoice us for that funding. if you had 2024 funding, we're going to need your annual report before you can invoice us. But I will be in contact with you well before then to make sure you know everything that's happening, what's needed, and when you can ask me for that funding. Operating grant eligibility. Is my organization eligible? These are mostly the same as last year. There are two changes that I'd like to point out, but just generally, you do need to be a 501c3 nonprofit organization. You do need to have as your purpose the production, presentation, advancement, or preservation of arts or culture in the city of Wichita. And you need to serve the residents of the city of Wichita. This next point is one of the big changes. The organization has a minimum of 2 years of operational history serving the residents of Wichita. I'll get to that, why that's important in a moment, but you need to have 2 years of operational history serving the residents of Wichita. You need to have full-time staff. It can be volunteer in nature. And then you need to present a full season of performances / exhibitions or other year-round programming. And that can be, if you offer classes or if you offer general admission to what your organization provides, things like that. Basically, we're not looking to fund a festival. We're not looking to fund a single performance, things like that. You need to be ADA compliant. If you utilize other locations in the city, you need to make sure that those locations are ADA compliant. Continuing on, your organization needs to be an equal opportunity employer and comply with the city of Wichita's guidelines on those. That's underlined because on the application itself, it is a link. So you are able to click that and see the document itself. If you think that you may not already be following this, I would suspect that you already are. But if you want to double check on the application, you'll be able to click that link to see the document. The same is true with the next bullet point, the National Endowment for the Arts national policy and other legal requirements, statutes, and regulations that govern your award. We are required to include that because we are using this grant funding as a match for another program that's coming up later this year. So these grants also need to follow these regulations. They are very similar to everything that I've talked about already. So it's sort of doing double duty, but just to be clear, I've included it here. And again, you can click that link to see that document if you're at all curious to see what those regulations are, or if you think you may not be following them. But again, I'd be very surprised that you weren't. And then finally, this final bullet point just reiterates what I've said before. These cultural institutions are not available to receive funding from this grant program. So the review process. Like I've mentioned, we will review each application submitted by the deadline. That doesn't mean the Cultural Funding Committee will review, but division staff will review. And we are checking for basic compliance. That means that we're checking to make sure that every question has been answered, all the documents are uploaded. We're not checking to see if the content or quality of the application is good. That, again, that's not our place to decide. We just decide whether or not we think you are a fundable organization. Applications that meet eligibility and compliance requirements will be submitted to the Cultural Funding Committee for evaluation. Cultural Funding Committee may not decide to fund you. We will still make sure that they see your application if you meet all the check boxes. Reports, audits, and contracts. If after all these steps, the recommendation for funding is approved, we will contract with you and have that fully executed for fiscal year 2025. In early 2026, you'll be required to submit a final year-end report. We have a form for that. It's very simple. So I would encourage you not to worry too hard about that year-end report. City funding may be audited, and you may be asked to provide additional financial information related to city funding if we suspect that you are using the funding for reasons other than operational purposes. I would be very surprised to find any of our organizations doing this. So this is really here just to make sure you know it's an option to us. But again, I don't think that will come up. The application itself asks for a lot of information, but we've streamlined it, and hopefully you'll find it very quick to get most of this in. Obviously, we'd love for you to think about your narrative questions as you're answering them. But it asks for the info about your organization, size, we'll get to that, amount requested, we'll get to that. Your current staff list. If you have a list of staff members, you are able to just upload that. Same with the board of trustees or directors list. If you have a list, you can just upload it. But we also provide fillable sections that hopefully won't take you too long to get through. We don't need to know every single person. If you're an organization that has a lot of part-time help or a lot of volunteer help, we don't need to know every single person, but the major players would be helpful to know. We ask for your mission statement and a single paragraph about your operations. Basically, what do you do? We have 14 or 15 narrative questions, depending on what type of organization you are. There's a question about collection management, essentially, for our museums and similar organizations out there. We ask for your attendance data. Again, we've streamlined that a bit. Fundraising data, again, streamlined. And then some additional financial information. That financial information has changed slightly, hopefully has helped some of our larger organizations. If your organization submits an IRS Form 990, that's a complete 990, you can upload that and you are good for the majority of your financial information. If your organization submits an IRS Form 990-EZ or another type of 990 that's not the complete 990, we will need to see 3 years of statements of activity or profit and loss statements and 3 years of statements of financial position or balance sheets. Depends on what software you ask what those are called, but those are the 2 documents that we'll need for the past 3 years if you upload an IRS Form 990-EZ or other type of non-complete 990. We need your current fiscal year operational budget. So whatever fiscal year you are currently in, whenever your fiscal year starts, we need the budget for the year that you are in, the one that was approved by your board of directors. We need an itemized list of in-kind services with dollar amounts included for each of the past 3 years. Do your best with this would be my answer. We'll get to it in a moment, but when we ask for the size of your organization, we ask for what your actual expenses are for your most recently completed fiscal year. Actual expenses do not include in-kind amounts, so we still want to know that information. We want to know what in-kind services or goods you're getting, but we want that separate from the money, the actual money that you spent. If your organization has an annual operating budget of $500,000 or more, and again, that does not include in-kind services like volunteer hours and things like that, we're going to need a fiscal year audit no older than fiscal year 2022, which performed by an outside accounting firm from you as part of your application. Those audits are usually good for 3 years or so. So if you've got one that's happened since fiscal year 2022 or more recently, you're going to need to include that as part of your application. If you are an organization that has just this year, just this most recently completed fiscal year, found yourself above $500,000, we are going to give you a one-time exemption for the audit, because we found that sometimes that shift up to above $500,000 catches some organizations by surprise. Sometimes it's difficult or financially difficult to get an audit done, especially in time for this process. So if you find yourself for the first time above $500,000, we're going to give you a 1-year exemption on the application. And you'll actually, as part of the application, see that if you're a large organization and you click that, a question will pop up asking you if this is your first time above $500,000. If you say yes, it is my first time, it will tell you, hey, 1-year exemption. But if you are above $500,000 again the following year, we are going to require that audit. So if you find yourself in that position, we would recommend, thinking about using some of this funding toward getting an audit for your organization, because they can be very helpful in other types of fundraising as well. The proposal narratives. This section of the application has seen a lot of change. Narrative questions have been rewritten for the applicant's ease, but most are still the same as those in previous applications. What does that mean? Well, here's an example in the middle of your screen. Previously, the question would say, describe how your organization measures community engagement in the fulfillment of your core mission. It's clear, but it's not as accessible as it could be. Currently, it says, how does your organization connect with the residents of Wichita? How do you measure that connection? We're just trying to help those organizations who don't think about things the same way that your larger, more practiced organizations might answer these questions more robustly, and think about some of the things that are asked that they may not be thinking about, or that opportunities that they could pursue. These questions have been organized based on how they match goals from the 2024-2028 Cultural Arts Strategic Plan. If, as you're going through the application, that causes you any amount of confusion, please reach out to me. I will happily help you understand what's going on, and I will happily make it easier to understand, essentially. This final paragraph is paraphrased. It is in the application itself, but the City of Wichita, the Division of Arts and Cultural Services, understands that it's incredibly difficult to meet every expectation listed in the application. Organizations grow and change at their own pace, track metrics and measure success in different ways, and each finds itself at a different point on its journey. The questions in the application are meant to help you focus your message and find areas for growth, not point out your failings. If you find yourself feeling that your answer is lacking to any particular question, perhaps that's simply an opportunity to chase. If we use the above question as an example, how do you measure that connection? Maybe you don't measure that connection, but perhaps moving forward, you could think about, hey, we do connect with people. We really should have some number that we tie to that. As Randy Cohen said at our February 27th premiere of the 2024-2028 Cultural Arts Strategic Plan, no story without data and no data without a story. So again, it's just an opportunity to find ways in which to grow as an organization. This final line here at the bottom of the slide is just a reminder. Again, funds are to be used for operations only. So that's paying salaries, paying rent, keeping the lights on, things such as that. So just to give you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, so to speak, of what's going on as your application is reviewed. This is the rubric that the Cultural Funding Committee will be looking at as they score your application. Now, throughout their answer to this question, the organization can be understood to be both intentional and committed to the work, active, engaged, and curious, consistently innovative, seeking out and leading collaborations, clear and providing all necessary detail. I'm not going to read everything here, but you can see that we label 3 out of 5 as successful. So we know that organizations are not going to excel at every single thing, and we do hit a bunch of different topics in the narrative questions. Obviously, this rubric does go further down, but let's stay positive. Let's stay successful, right? So if you're committed to the work, you're active, you're consistently engaging, occasionally seeking collaboration, clear and providing adequate amount of detail, you're successful. Funding request amounts. So this is where we get into the size of the organization and how much you can request as part of this grant program. Large organizations, $500,000 and up. Medium organizations, between $250,000 and $500,000. Small organizations, $250,000 and below. So if your organization is $300,000 in actual spending every year, you would be qualified as a medium organization, and you could request 10% of that actual spending from this grant program. So you could request $30,000. Small organizations can request 15% of their actual spending. If you're an $80,000 a year organization, you're looking at $12,000 that you can request. Large organizations can request 8%, but they do cap out at $75,000 maximum. So, if you are over $1 million, you're basically at that $75,000 max that you can request. This is one section where we have created a supplemental document for this application. So as you're going through the application, you will see a link that says, if you need help, click here. And if you click there, it'll take you to the document and it'll show you the math so you can plug in your own stuff to help you figure out this number. There's no need to be afraid of these numbers. And if I review your form and I see that the number is different, I'll check with you to make sure, like if it's less than you could be asking for, I'll ask. I'll say, hey, did you really want to ask for the maximum that you can ask for? Or are you, really only asking for this much? Or if it's too much, I'll say, hey, I had to reduce this because the number is can't be that high. But we'll get it figured out. So like I've said, organizations can fill out and submit applications using Submittable. That is our platform of choice. We used it last year. It worked really well. We're very happy with it, so we're going to keep using it. It's wichita.submittable.com. That link can be found at wichita.gov/arts. But if you want to go directly there, it's wichita.submittable.com. We will be having information sessions about Submittable. If you're watching this, they may have already finished. But we should have uploaded as well an informational video about Submittable. So you can check our YouTube page, the City of Wichita YouTube page for that. You can reach out to me. I'll give you my email here in a moment for that video. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. But it's a pretty simple to use platform. You just scroll to the bottom. It'll say 2025 operational grants, and you click submit. Obviously, you would think that would be the final button you hit. Here, since it's submittable, it's the first button you hit, and you are taken to the application. As I mentioned earlier, the operational grants have had the required operational history of the organization dropped to 2 years. That has been put into place to catch all of the organizations who would have applied for developing arts grants but couldn't apply for operational grants into the operational grant category. So now all organizations with at least 2 years of operational history can apply for operational grants. The City of Wichita will not be offering the Developing Arts Grant in 2025 or for 2025. So we have made this change in order to make sure that no organization is left out from consideration. Again, my name is Jesse Koza. I am the Cultural Arts Administrator for the City of Wichita. My email is jkoza, Jkoza, @wichita.gov. My phone number is 316-350-3241. So feel free to call me if you need. And again, that very helpful informational website, wichita.gov/arts. Thank you for watching.